Welcome to Sinkowitz, hosted by the fearless Linda Sinkowitz. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to Sinkowitz. I'm Linda Sinkowitz, the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. I want to thank everyone who is watching us on YouTube, Rumble, OBBM Network TV, Spotify, and the other platforms. We really appreciate the support. So this week, my guest is John Droz. You're definitely going to want to hear the information he has to say concerning the 2020 election. The states that we're going to be talking about this week are Alabama, Iowa, Tennessee, Virginia, Wisconsin. We'll go to our election term, our election vocabulary, our election trivia, national news, vote notes, international, and as always, my unscripted final thoughts at the end. Well, let's just jump right into it right now with John Droz. John, welcome.
Hello, Linda. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. What people are going to find out about you is the extremely important work you did actually right after the 2020 election. And if people want to take a look while they're listening, to write down your website, which is election-integrity.info, correct?
That's correct.
So let's get right to it. What was important about the work that you and others had done in 2020?
Well, probably people are going to want to know how it came about. So the brief story is I got a call from an attorney who said she was representing a group of attorneys that were working with the White House that were trying to get to the bottom of some of the 2020 election results to see whether they were credible or not. So she asked me whether I was willing to put together a team of experts to analyze data. So I called a bunch of people that I knew. All of them were PhDs, most of them in statistics, and they all said yes. So I said, okay. So then she said, here's a link to Pennsylvania data. Gave me a URL for that. There was like 4 billion bits of data, so quite a bit. And so she said, I'd like you and your team to look through this data and give us a report as to what you think. If there's things that are suspicious or problematic or whatever, let us know. So the short, I guess, is being very brief here, is that we put together, this team of 6 people and myself, put together a report, probably the first report generated in the whole country on the 2020 election. It's posted on this website, election-integrity.info. About what happened in Pennsylvania. So this amounted to be a 50-page report that each person on my team here looked at the data and came up with their own assessment of things that they found were abnormal, suspicious. We don't use the word, we try to avoid being incendiary and illegal. So for instance, we didn't use the word fraud, even though a lot of things there certainly had the impression of being fraudulent, but we didn't use that word. So we'd say things like anomalies. So that went over very well, and it's been posted there since November of 2020, and no one has come forward to dispute a single fact about it. No one. So they were very happy, these lawyers, with the result we produced, and so they asked us to do some other ones. So the long and short of it is that we put together 10 reports over the next year or so. Some of them were quite well publicized. For instance, one we did was based on the fact that we continue to hear from the mainstream media that Trump had lost every legal case. We decided to do a detailed analysis of every single legal case that had to do with the 2020 election, and there were some 94. So we documented every single one of these, so you can go look what the case is. They're all on a huge Excel spreadsheet. And it turns out that if you subtract out the ones that were dismissed because of legal technicalities, in other words, there wasn't a determination of right and wrong, there was just things like standing and so forth. There were 34 cases that were decided on the merits, and out of the 34, my recollection is that Trump won 27. So about 75% of the cases were won by Trump when the merits were decided. So you don't hear this from anybody. This got well publicized because it's true. And again, no one has come forward to disprove a single one of the line items that we have on that form. So probably by the time we were done, our main conclusion was that the worst part of our system, and there are several bad parts, but the worst part is that we don't have any meaningful audits. So I think you can see if the IRS didn't have meaningful audits, how much compliance there would be with IRS regulations. And interestingly, even despite the fact that they do have audits, the compliance rate is listed as something like 88%. So if you assume that the best case were in voting, that the compliance rate, in other words, people who are legitimate voters 88% of the time, that would be a horrifically bad problem, just horrifically bad. And so our 10th report was about audits and explained that there's three main aspects that need to be audited: the voter, the process for the machine, the balloting process, machine or hand, and third of all was the overall process of how things are handled before, during, and after. So we have examples of all three of those areas where in 2020 they were proven to be very problematic. So we have real world examples to show that. So anyways, I've been involved in this ever since that time. I frequently participate in Cleta Mitchell's Friday morning get together, which has been going on since shortly after we got started, early 2021, a long time. So she's a magnificent leader here of this whole effort. And we support what she's doing. So that's the shortest version I can say of this, but the bottom line is that we need to have improvements statewide and federally about our voting system here, because it's quite clear there are a lot of loopholes and these are being taken advantage of by bad actors. So that's the brief report.
Well, I want to thank you so much for giving us the information. Again, your website is election-integrity.info. So we want people to go there, and thank you so much for coming on. We realize we've been having some technical difficulties, but thank you.
Thank you. I can read your lips mostly.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you in courtrooms and communities nationwide to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country. This is our vote. Let's protect it together.
Hi, I'm Linda Sinkowitz from Sinkowitz, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new series that we have just added called Sinkowitz Presents Candidate Spotlight. And this is open to any candidate, any party, anywhere in the country that wants to have a 20-minute interview. So you can talk about yourself, your platform, your campaign, and we'll help you get it out there. So give us a call, send us an email, or visit our website. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. I want to thank everyone again who's watching us on OBBM Network TV, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and the other platforms. We did have some technical difficulties with the last guest and being able to hear me when I was speaking. So I hope everybody gets all the information. Again, it was John Droz. His website, election-integrity.info. It is absolutely worth going and taking a look at. So thank you, everybody. So now we're going to go on to our first state of the week is Alabama. And this is from the Alabama Reflector on May 6th of 2026. Amid protests, flooding, and evacuations, Alabama legislature passes special election bills. The Alabama legislature on Wednesday passed legislation that could set new primary dates for the state amid protests within the state house and flooding that left the Alabama Senate to quickly pass its bill before a mass evacuation of the building. HB1, which was sponsored by Speaker pro tempore Chris Pringle, he's a Republican from Mobile. I don't know, how do you say that? Mobile, would allow for a new special election if the U.S. Supreme Court lifts an injunction preventing the state from redrawing congressional maps before 2030. SB1, sponsored by Senate Chris Elliott. I really should make this stuff look bigger on my paper, honestly. It is like, what the heck did I do here? I'm sorry. I hope a lot of you get a laugh on some of this stuff. Like I said, we continue taping. As a Republican from Josephine affects 2 Montgomery area Senate districts. The legislation drew sharp criticism from Democrats who said the bills aim to reduce Black political representation in the legislature. Quote, this body continues to find more ways to make voting more difficult, more ways to suppress the vote, and more ways to dilute the power of the Black vote. Oh my goodness. I know why I did this. We're not going to read the rest of the story. It's the same whining and complaining. And as we all know, you cannot have redistricting based on racial profiling. You can't do that. That was a long story. Let's see how many pages I have to flip. Oh my goodness. We're just going to go on to Iowa right now. Iowa, this is from the Iowa Capitol Dispatch from May 6, 2026. Democrats criticize Iowa decision to share voter info with U.S. Justice Department. Can I have my box of tissues, please? Tim is constantly using these. I don't know. His allergies act up. But yes, you're going to need this if you're a Democrat for this story. Challengers in races for Secretary of State, Attorney General raise data privacy concerns. Democratic candidates running for statewide offices. The 2020 election said Wednesday that the Republican Secretary of State and Attorney General are compromising Iowans' privacy and personal data by sharing information with the U.S. Department of Justice. We should just be saying, wah, 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 because that's all we hear. Okay, so the Iowa Secretary of State, Paul Pate, confirmed Tuesday that Iowa turned over the voter registration data, including personally identifiable information like driver's license and social security numbers at the bequest of the DOJ. As we've said many times before, who do you think gave you your social security number? The federal government. They already have your information. This is not what they're going after through the voter rolls themselves. It is just an identifier that it's you. And they sort of need those because the dead people on the voter rolls, if their social security number hasn't been stolen yet, will be one of the ways that they end up clearing off the dead people. And through the alien ID social security numbers that were given to the illegals. Again, it's an identifier of people who should not be on the voter rolls. So even though the Democrats think, oh my God, it's a bad thing, it is the best thing you can imagine with them cleaning the voter rolls. And again, as of the March 31st executive order for absentee ballots, the restrictions that President Trump has put in is that the voter rolls will be coming from the Department of Justice to the states. Yes, they are. They will be coming to the states, and they would have already been cleaned of all these horrible people that either don't exist, the ghost voters, the dead people, the illegals, so we can have a free and fair election. The more the Democrats whine, the more we see why they don't want it done. So you got the Democrats in Iowa crying the crocodile tears. But I'm glad the Secretary of State and the Attorney General in Iowa agreed to send the information to the Department of Justice. Did I get off on a little bit of final thoughts? Maybe just a little bit. Okay, now we're going to talk about Tennessee. This is from PBS News on May 2nd. Tennessee Democrats lock arms in protest as GOP lawmakers approve new congressional map. They need these two. This is out of Nashville. Republican lawmakers in Tennessee approved a new U.S. House map Thursday that carves up a majority Black district in Memphis, reshaping it to the GOP's advantage as part of Donald Trump's strategy to hold on to a slim majority in the November midterm elections. Was that necessary? No, that statement was not necessary, but it's PBS, okay? So we know which way this is leaning. The final vote came amid protests and chaos as demonstrators chanted loudly in the galleries and hallways. Democratic State Senator Charlene Oliver stood on her desk. Oh, that's really proper. In the Senate chamber, holding a banner denouncing the redistricting as, quote, Jim Crow effort, then clapping and dancing. Other Democratic senators linked arms in front of the chamber. So one of the things, apparently they're looking into one of the Democrats that was swearing and saying some not so nice things to the state police. They're being looked into. And you know, the funny thing about this is that new districting, it's actually a Black female who is the one running for office. It's really interesting. You know, they come up with all this stuff. We're going to go on to Virginia. This is from Axios.com from May 8th, 2026. Love this one. Virginia Supreme Court throws out redistricting referendum results. And if you'll remember a few weeks ago, we had on Ken Cuccinelli, the chairman, and he said this was going to happen because it was unconstitutional. The Virginia Supreme Court overturned the results of the state's redistricting referendum, which voters narrowly approved last month. Why it matters, the 4-3 ruling upends one of the most closely watched redistricting fights in the country. It follows months of legal challenges over whether the referendum was unconstitutional. Now, the big picture, the Friday decision says the amendment process pushed by Democrats violated the state constitution, effectively blocking the effort to redraw congressional maps mid-decade. That's after the state spent $5.2 million to pay for the special election, and outside groups raised nearly $100 million to sway the voters. The new map would have been in effect in November midterms and was expected to shift the state's congressional split from 6-5, favoring Democrats 10-1. Between the lines, it was a move Democrats said would have countered Republican-led states that redrew districts to add GOP seats in a closely divided U.S. House. Republicans who have repeatedly sued to block the redistricting vote have called it extreme, illegal, and hyper-partisan. So this was an absolutely fantastic thing that happened. They tried pushing it through. Even the wording of it was very slanted, but the bottom line, it's against the Virginia Constitution on what they did. But wait a minute, didn't Spanberger say she was not going to do this stuff when she got elected? Oh, forgive me. The one who's, I don't know, how signed how many executive orders the day she got in. She did not tell the truth to you Virginians. And I know a lot of you are seeing that now. So yay to the Virginia Supreme Court. Now we're going to go into Wisconsin. Wisconsin, this is from Wisconsin Public Radio from May 7th, 2026. New Wisconsin law barring out-of-staters from collecting candidate signatures challenged in court. A Virginia-based political action committee says only letting Wisconsin citizens gather signatures for candidates or recall efforts violates free speech. A conservative law firm says a new bipartisan ban on out-of-state residents collecting signatures for candidates running for Wisconsin office is unconstitutional. In late March, Democratic Governor Tony Evers signed a bipartisan bill making it illegal for people from outside of Wisconsin to collect signatures for launching recall elections or getting state and local candidates on the ballots. The law has an exception allowing those from outside Wisconsin to collect signatures for presidential and vice presidential candidates. Now, I'm not really sure I'm for or against this. I think I would actually have to have a lot more information. But if you're going to allow it for the presidential and vice presidential candidates, why not allow it for everybody? Why? Because you have your Congress people and your senators that are under federal elections. So it's not like they divided it between local elections and federal elections. I don't know. We'll have to see. Okay, our election term of the week. This is from U.S. Vote Foundation on May 11th, 2026. Primary and midterm primary election. A federal election held prior to the general election in which registered voters in all states select candidates for federal and state office who will appear on the ballot at the upcoming general election. So normally before the elections, they have the conventions, and that's where it gets into voting to see who they're going to put on the ballots. And there's certain amounts of the delegates that people need to have in order to move forward into a primary, if that's what they choose to do. Just so you know, I'm actually a delegate here in Connecticut, representing Middletown, Connecticut. I'm also the chairperson, and there's a whole bunch of other exciting things that are going to be happening this Friday and Saturday here in Connecticut. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Election trivia. Our election trivia question is from mywoodcounty.com from May 11th. What president blew his entire campaign budget on 160 gallons of liquor to serve to potential voters? Think about that. And we're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org, because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, I'm Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. I'm very excited to announce Operation Verify Voters 2026. This is where everyone can get involved. Every single person can get involved in helping make sure we have transparent and clean elections. The most important thing is cleaning the voter rolls. Who knows better than you on your street? You know when people have sold their homes. You know when people moved. You know when other people have passed away. Those are people we need to make sure are no longer on the voter rolls. And it's really easy to do. We can help you. What we're going to be doing is setting up training sessions, which you sign up for, and we will walk you through the process. It's simple, it's easy, and everyone can get involved. So you're going to go to fightvoterfraud.org or scan the QR code, and it'll bring you right to our Operation Verify Voters 2026. And our goal is to get every single state involved in this initiative. Everyone can make a difference. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkwitz. I'm Linda Sinkwitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. I want to thank everybody again for watching us on YouTube, Rumble, OBBM Network TV, Spotify, and a number of other platforms. Thank you. And please like and share. We want to get as much information out there as possible. And I do want to thank people who have been sending in their comments to me. So far, it's been pretty good. A lot of people like it, and there's a few that don't, but that's okay. It's okay. I'm used to it. All right. So when I last left you before the break, we were talking about our election trivia question, which was mywoodcounty.com from May 11th. What president blew his entire campaign budget on 160 gallons of liquor to serve to potential voters. You guessed it. It was George Washington. Wow. I think that's something now that you can't do. So now we're going to talk about national news. And this is from the Las Vegas Weekly from May 7th, 2026. Nevada officials challenge Trump's executive order on mail ballots ahead of the June 9th primary. On June 2nd, a federal judge in Massachusetts will hear arguments whether President Donald Trump's latest executive order on mail ballots is unconstitutional. The litigation comes just 1 week before Nevada holds its June 9th primary elections. Signed by Trump on March 31st, the order entitled Ensuring Citizenship Verification and Integrity in Federal Elections seeks to overhaul Americans' ability to vote by mail by creating federal citizenship lists to determine voter eligibility and directing the U.S. Postal Service to withhold mail ballots from those not on the list. It also threatens election officials with criminal prosecution and loss of federal funding for those who do not comply. Yes. Honestly, this is one of the best things that has happened for election security. And the Democrats have fallen right into what was expected, litigation. And it's been fast tracked. And of course, Massachusetts, the dark blue state of the sanctuary state that fights against anything that is positive for us Americans. So once this comes down, and I am confident that it will be in Trump's favor because only U.S. citizens should be allowed to vote. Obviously, we know the secretaries of states, especially the ones pushing back, are not responsible enough to clean the voter rolls. I think that's what I'm going to talk more about in my final thoughts. Probably should get back to the story. That happens sometimes. So Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford is now co-leading a 24-state coalition. I got to tell you, Attorney General Tong in Connecticut, he was probably one of the first ones, pick me to get in there. I'm sure he's one of them because that's what he does. I'm from Connecticut. Anything that is against U.S. citizens and Americans is something he stands behind. They're arguing that it unconstitutionally subverts states' authority to administer their own elections. As Nevada's chief election administrator, Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar has been a close public ally in the effort, of course. And while both officials say they're confident the order shouldn't impact the June 9th primary, they are less certain on the November elections. Well, yeah, because, oh my goodness, we cannot only have U.S. citizens voting in the elections. So I think this is a great thing. It is absolutely fantastic. And I personally am confident that it's going to be upheld. And then you're going to have to hang on to your bootstraps on what's coming down the pike. Next, going on to vote notes. Now, remember, vote notes is a story that you need to go to the website and read the rest of it because it's a very long story, but it is something that people should read. This is from Nonstop Local ABC Fox on May 7th of 2026. Montana initiative regulating corporate election spending faces legal challenges. The Transparent Election Initiative, TEI, advanced with a Montana Supreme Court lawsuit regarding how to summarize its constitutional initiative to stop corporate spending in state elections. The lawsuit is one of several legal battles in the last 6 months that have refined TEI's, quote, Montana plan and its goal to get its legislation out of the courtroom and onto the ballot. In the most recent lawsuit about the initiative, TEI accused Attorney General Austin Knudsen and Secretary of State Christy Jacobson of changing the ballot summary in a way that, quote, fails to provide a true and impartial explanation, and that is, quote, argumentative and prejudicial. Okay, in TEI's lawsuit, which was filed on May 5th, it said Knudsen described the initiative as regulatory prohibition affecting constitutional rights rather than as a power-defining amendment. So if you want to go to our website, just click on Vote Notes, and you can read the rest of that story. There's always something going on everywhere across the United States. And when I go through them, I just try to pick ones we haven't talked about in a while, different states. And if you have something going on in your state that you want people to know about, election-wise, please email us. Email info@fightvoterfraud.org. We frequently use stories that are sent in with sources because we absolutely need to have the source that we quote, because we don't just make things up. Yeah. Oh, my assistant said we're not Democrats. So we do our best to be transparent and tell the truth. So now we're going to go on to international news. And this is about England, the UK. And I got this information from BBC on May 9th, 2026. England local election results for 2026. Now, their election results cover not only England, but Wales and Scotland. And the Reform Party had a huge win. Huge, massive. As most of you know, Starmer is the prime minister he should just be sitting in a corner sucking his thumb right now. He is doing nothing to help people in England, especially with the immigration issues, refused to help Trump when he asked if people were going to step up. Well, I'll tell you, the Reform Party in England is fed up with the Labour Party. The Labour Party, I guess, would be equivalent to the Democrats here in the United States with the Trump derangement syndrome. That's the equivalent. So what ended up happening is that the Labour Party, for council seats, they have 28. They lost 38 seats. The councillors, out of 1,068, they lost 1,496. That's a negative. So they also have the Liberal Democrats in there, but the Reform Party is the one that had the biggest change. They got plus 14 for their council. The councillors, out of the 1,453, they got 1,451. That's a huge plus. Huge. The Conservative Party was, they're not so conservative, by the way. They have the Green Party. They actually made some headway. They have something called the Aspire. They only have a few votes that went for them. All right, so they have one council. They have out of the 33 total, and they had a plus 9. Well, that was good. Independents and others, they had a plus 34. Like I said, they have a number of different, they have a lot of different parties. But again, this covers a whole bunch of different areas. Even their mayoral results have gone extremely well for the Reform Party. So we got to keep an eye on the UK with everything that's going on over there. Now, I know the Gary Myers report, they have Zooms that are available, and they just did one this past Saturday on England and what was going on with that. And it was absolutely fabulous. So go to the Myers report, check it out. It is phenomenal. You want to know what's going on around the world? They are a think tank that has over a 97% accuracy whenever they do projections. And they do projections like a year in advance on everything economic, things around the world. It is absolutely phenomenal what they've been doing. And they've been around 40 years doing this. Wow. So now we are to my final thoughts. Not that I ever have an opinion on anything. A few of my opinions have becoming very, very strong lately because of all the stuff that I am seeing that is going on around the country and around the world. I've told you before, I think our commander in chief is doing a phenomenal job on everything that he is doing. And even though this doesn't have to do with elections, I do want to get out there. Yes, I am also feeling the crunch at the pump, but it is only temporary. When people are asking, why are the prices going up? Simple explanation is that the oil is a world commodity. So it doesn't mean that we can have different prices than what the world prices are at. We have more than enough oil. We are actually supplying oil to multiple countries. So as soon as the Iranian war, after 47 years, is completely squashed, I expect to see that soon. By the time this comes out, hopefully it'll be done. We're actually taping the show the day that Trump is flying to China. And no, he does not want to be in a war escalating while he's meeting with China. We'll see what happens with that. But I expect the Iranian regime to be totally crushed. And once that happens, yay, gas prices will plummet. As most of you already know, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, they got out of NATO last week. Kudos to them. Kudos. They have already increased their oil production. They are an ally of the United States. And as of yesterday, they were bombing Iran because Iran has been taking pot shots at them and their country, and they had had enough. So this is what elections result in. Elections are important because of who the leader of the country is, who the prime minister is. We don't have a prime minister here in the United States. We have Donald J. Trump, and we have an incredible support team that he has. And those of you that have Trump derangement syndrome that may be listening to this, I know, hey, get out a ton of boxes of Kleenexes and start saying, oh, that's not true. Look at what is happening around the world. He's reshaping everything. And the one thing that we need to reshape is how elections are done in the United States. We have one of the worst records in the world, in the entire world, for voting. Unbelievable. So Trump is finally fixing it. So as we talked earlier about the March 31st executive order on the absentee ballots. Again, what that is about is that there are 8 states that only do absentee ballots. Otherwise, you would not have seen this out there at all, because we need to go to same day paper ballot, in person, hand counted elections. And there's so many reasons that back that up. It is unbelievable, the number of reasons. But what the Department of Justice has done with the voter rolls that they will be sending to the states will not be able to use their own voter rolls because they're corrupt. The secretaries of states have not cleaned them. Your election officials have not cleaned the voter rolls between the dead people, the illegals that are on there, the ghost voters. So what's going to happen is each state is going to be sent their voter rolls where people's citizenship has already been verified through all kinds of databases that the government has on you. Yes, there's a lot of databases with your information out there. But again, remember, the federal government gave you your Social Security number. It is just an identifier. They don't want to be digging into who you are. They're not going to be sending it out to mail order companies to start sending you stuff. I mean, none of that stuff is happening. It's an identifier. And you should be proud that our government is willing to step up and make sure only U.S. citizens are voting. Yeah, we know your grandma and grandpa or your great-grandparents that have passed away, they always voted, but they cannot vote if you are not alive. And there's been a lot of them out there that have been voting. This cemetery vote is not a myth. So with the Democrats, the 24 states that have hopped on board. Like I said, it's going to be Massachusetts is where this is happening. And I'm just saying, please don't get a DEI judge. Honestly, I mean, that's crazy. But I'm sure Connecticut is involved. Tong, I know you're going to be right out there in front, making sure that the illegals in Connecticut can vote through absentee. I mean, we know you are for that, but that's not what America is about. So it's very important for people to understand this first step and this legal step that the federal government is in charge of federal elections. And this year is a federal election. So why would they not be the ones sending the cleaned voter rolls? And anybody who signs up after the voter rolls go out, because there's going to be people who sign up, they have to prove you're a U.S. citizen. And guess what's in there? If the election officials do not show absolute proof that the person is a U.S. citizen, they are the ones who will be criminally charged. It's about time. So again, not that I have any personal feelings towards anything that is going on right now. We want to keep everybody updated on what is happening across the country. And I got to tell you, after this comes down on June 2nd, I believe, hang on to your bootstraps. There's a lot more that's going to be happening concerning elections this year. So again, thank you for watching us on YouTube, Rumble, OBBM Network TV, Spotify, and any and everywhere else that we have on the platforms. Please like and share. Share your thoughts with us, and you can always reach us at info@fightvoterfraud.org. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.